Hello everyone, this is Ryan from the ProfitTrailer team, also known as RF Radio, on the ProfitTrailer support server on Discord as well as elsewhere on the internet. In this video I'm going to be going over the remaining two strategies two options that can be used with your strategies in ProfitTrailer, and that would be the Anderson and disabled functions. So there isn't going to be any kind of charting on this one because there really is nothing to show on a chart. There is no way to simulate the Anderson or disabled functions on a chart. So I won't be showing you anything on TradingView on this video. I'm just going to be showing you how to set this up in your bot and demonstrate to you what it looks like on the DCA or pairs log. Looking like I only have one in the DCA log right now on my test bot, so we're just going to look at it there, and the options that hold true for disabled in the DCA will also apply to pairs. So just to give you a preview of what we're doing, that's what this video is all about. So let's go on down to the wiki real quick and see how both Anderson and disabled are set up, and then we will come back to the bot and I'll show you how to set it up in pairs and in DCA. So we go to the bottom of the page here, we have the wiki, and click on the wiki link, and it takes you to the ProfitTrailer wiki. As always, I scroll down on the left hand side and look for the buy and sell strategies under trading. Click that and it takes you to your buy and sell strategies page. Now looking here at the matrix, we see on the bottom two options here, we have the Anderson and disabled. Now the Anderson is only used for DCA buying. It has no other function. And we're going to start with going over Anderson, and then we'll go over to disabled. So once we click on Anderson here, it goes down to the article. And this describes exactly everything you want to know about the Anderson strategy. So Anderson was an idea by a team member, and his name is Anderson. Yes, if you ever see him out there on the support server, it's Anderson DCA. That's his name. So this was implemented in the early days of ProfitTrailer. So this is a holdover from the first version. This was the second of the two, or this was one of only two buying strategies for DCA that was available. So the idea was that you could make rebuys in dollar cost averaging using different triggers each time just to get out of a bad position faster instead of using a specific indicator. And it was very effective, and actually still is very effective. Now the interesting part about ProfitTrailer 2.0 is that you have the same buy triggers available for all strategies now, not just Anderson. So there's really no benefit or harm using this alongside other strategies. But if you just want to use the buy trigger as your buy point, just use Anderson. So that's an interesting little thing you can do here. You can still use Anderson by itself as a buy strategy, and it can be pretty effective if that's what you're aiming for. If you're looking to buy immediately as it dips below a certain point, then this is what you would use. So it is only true when the price of the coin has dropped by the specific buy trigger percentage from the average price of the coin that you're holding. Okay, so whenever it goes into DCA and your Anderson is your strategy for that coin, or as your default like it is here, then it would go to your first buy trigger. It would look to make sure that the coin price has dropped 2% in this particular example here. It would wait until the coin price has dropped 2% from its initial buy on the first buy trigger. Okay, because for average price on your initial buy, or should I say for buy trigger 1, your initial buy would be your average price. Okay, and then for your buy trigger 2, it would take the average price between your initial buy and your first buy trigger point, and then it's got to go down by this value here. In this example, it's negative 3.5. So the price of the coin would have to drop another 3.5% from that average price, and then it would rebuy. But also bear in mind, for every rebuy, for each buy trigger point, your trailing buy will factor in. So that is buy trigger, then trailing buy, and then it rebuys. Then it hits the next buy trigger, and then it trails, and then it rebuy again. So that's how this will work. And in Anderson, all it's going to go by is buy triggers, because there is absolutely no buy value or buy value limit, as noted here. So numbers, valid values, is just buy trigger. Okay, so that's the only thing you can use here. The formula, if you wish to know, is right here. You can calculate out to see if it's doing it right if you want, but it's pretty well proven now that it does work very, very well. So this particular scenario, it's only using 3 rebuys defined in the buy triggers right here. If it does go beyond 3, like if you've set it to a maximum buy amount of 5 times, then this next default DCI buy trigger would factor in after the first 3 buy triggers. Okay, so that's why this is set up this way. And if you want to read through this, this is basically just everything I just said. So now that we've gone over what this is, how it works from the wiki, let's go ahead and take a look at my test bot real quick. And now I've got 3 in DCA. Look at that, I bought 2 more. And we can look and see here. Anderson is shown right here under your buy strategy. You can't use it for sell, it's only buy, so it will only ever show up here. And this is just going to tell you, hey, I'm here at this point. Under rebuy timeout, there will be no buys when your rebuy timeout is active like it is right here. So I've got that going. Now, interesting thing, Anderson will never have a buy strategy value here, but it will always have the buy strategy value trigger. Because you can't define a buy value, it'll just say 0 right here. And your buy strategy trigger will say 0 on this as well. So your buy strategy trigger value, however, because your next, because you do have a trigger specified, that's what this is here, the buy strategy trigger value. So this next one, it'll buy again when it hits a 15% drop from average price. That's what this is denoting here. As you can see, I've got it, well, I'll take you over to the DCA config in just a second. But this is just going to show up just like this, just like any other buy strategy. It'll just say Anderson here, and you just won't see these buy strategy values. So don't worry if you see a 0 here, that's normal. So let's go ahead and take a look at the DCA config, because there is no pairs config for Anderson. It's strictly DCA. We're going to zoom this in a little bit so we can see what we're doing here. And I'm not going to go into sell strategies here. I'm just going to show you buy settings because this is all that applies. So on a buy strategy of Anderson, I have it set as my A buying strategy. Now I have defined a default B buying strategy here of low BB. Now this will be satisfied alongside Anderson before it buys. Okay, so in this case, Anderson is just using the buy triggers. However, I could just do this and just comment these lines out here, which eliminates the low BB strategy, and then I would strictly be buying off of the buy trigger using the Anderson strategy. There's no harm in doing that. It can work very well this way. There is also no harm in just doing this. Now, this would be the exact same thing as if you weren't even using Anderson, and instead you're just using low BB with the buy triggers. It really wouldn't change anything there if you were to have more than one buy strategy alongside Anderson. Now, the advantage to defining more than one buy strategy with Anderson is when you can factor in the disabled function, and that is the next part we're going to go talk about. So I'm actually just going to go park this back on my DCA page. I'm not going to save this, just going to go back here. And let's go back to the wiki real quick. Right below the Anderson article is the disabled one. Now, this is used as a buy or sell strategy in place of another name strategy when coin-specific strategies are used. So if you want to define a coin-specific strategy that does not use one of your defaults, you can tell it to disable by simply putting the coin ticker symbol, your B buy strategy, and then disabled. Now, what's not said here is this also works for DCA. Okay, so if you want this thing to use if you want a specific coin to not use a buy strategy in pairs, you can also set it to not use the buy strategy in DCA. So I'll go over and show you that in both pairs and DCA in just a second. But this basically is telling you here that you can use default settings except for specific coins, and you have to define which coin it is in this string here to disable that particular buy strategy. This is a very interesting little thing, because then you can pick and choose. Like, say you want to list like 4 or 5 different buy strategies, then you can pick and choose which coins use what strategies, which is pretty awesome, I think. So let's go ahead back over to my bot here, and my test bot, and we can look first at the pairs. I'll show you how to set this up here. I don't have any examples in pairs right now to show you, but down here at the bottom I have this section that I created called coin specific settings, and I initially just said you know, for true USD buy strategy, B buy strategy is disabled, and then true USDC sell strategy disabled. Now this should only work for buy strategy. I can go over here. We'll take a look at DCA in just a second. Now it says I haven't yet checked to see if this works 100% on sell strategy, but we'll just go ahead and see if it really does. But the buy strategy here, buy strategy B disabled, that means my default buy sell settings here, I've told it not to use low BB. Just use stochastic oscillator and RSI for buying. In that case, it would ignore whoops, I go to the bottom. In that case, it would ignore low BB because I told it here to disable it. So that would be just using an example of using only 2 versus 1 indicator. If we go over to DCA, it's almost exactly the same as pairs, except you add in the DCA right there before the number or the letter designator for whichever strategy you want it to disable. It has the effect of, let's see, I told it to disable the low BB here too, just use Anderson. But what that does is it has the effect, if we look at, let's go back and look at the DCA log here. I have the true USD here. You notice it only says Anderson here, no low BB. So it just eliminates it. Oops, it bumped to the top here. It eliminates that particular buy strategy that you disable. It just doesn't list it. It won't sit there and say disabled. It'll just say you're only one that is enabled. And also, look at that, it does work for sell. It has the effect of eliminating whichever sell strategy you don't want, as long as you define here in the settings. See, I said here TUSD DCAC sell strategy disabled. So I did not want it to use RSI on my selling strategy. That basically takes it off, so it's only using high BB and gain. So this is an interesting little tidbit that's not in the wiki. It does work for sell as well as buy. Alright, so that is it really for the Anderson and disabled functions. They're very simple to use, probably the simplest out of all the strategies aside from the gain and loss strategies. So if you like what you see in this video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you want to subscribe to the channel, and please consider it, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And if you just want to get some alerts as to when we post new content and videos, go ahead and hit that little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. As always, stay safe, happy trading, and I will see you on the next video. If you need any help with your ProfitTrailer client, please consult the wiki at wiki.profittrailer.com. And if you still have more questions, don't hesitate to join us over on the Discord support server following the link on your screen.